no. Well, I still believe that, but you know, takes two to tango, right? But no, I do. I mean, I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things. There would be a lot of advantages.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, you know, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign.
It was supposed to be a landmark gathering of the world's most powerful democracies, set against the breathtaking backdrop of the Canadian Rockies, a summit that seasoned diplomats and rising stars alike dream of attending. The stage was set for history, the crisp mountain air, the towering pines, the meticulously arranged flags fluttering in the breeze. Expectations ran high as Air Force One touched down in Alberta, its arrival symbolizing the beginning of what many hoped would be a turning point in global cooperation. The anticipation was palpable as journalists, policy experts, and citizens around the world waited for what was expected to be a showcase of democratic unity. But as the hours unfolded, everything that gives a summit its sense of occasion and purpose quietly slipped away. There was no group photo capturing leaders side by side, no ceremonial handshake signaling solidarity, no joint statement to reassure a watching world, not even a unified press release offering carefully crafted words of hope or progress. The traditional symbols of diplomacy, images that project strength, resolve, and partnership, were conspicuously absent. Instead, the gathering dissolved into an uneasy stillness, a deliberate, resonant silence that echoed through the mountains and corridors of power alike, louder and more telling than any diplomat's speech could have been. From the onset, Canada made a statement. Prime Minister Mark Carney scrapped the final communiqué before any negotiations even began. No press release, no negotiated language, only a neutral chair summary. Journalists called it historic. Officials called it surgical. That silence wasn't chaos. It was strategic defiance, a refusal to legitimize economic pressure masquerading as diplomacy. Canada signaled that it would not endorse outcomes built on coercion. President Trump's motives were clear from the moment he landed. He demanded NATO allies raise defense spending to 5% of GDP, an ask so extreme it was seen as detached from political reality. He threatened sweeping tariffs on steel, aluminum, autos, and even agricultural goods. And in one of the summit's most jarring moments, he suggested that Canada should have always been part of the United States. That remark, careless or calculated, shattered any remaining illusion of unity. Carney responded quietly but firmly, removing all standard language of solidarity, denying Trump any photo ops, and stripping the summit of its usual symbolism. Japan answered differently. Its delegation filed a formal complaint at the World Trade Organization, asserting that U.S. aluminum and steel tariffs violated global trade rules. Mexico came ready with legal briefs aimed at preventing new border duties. Even the U.K., caught between transatlantic tensions and its post-Brexit realities, managed to negotiate a brief exception for digital services, limited to 12 months and applying only to financial firms. The patchwork of responses laid bare how fractured and reactive the international community had become in the face of U.S. unpredictability. Inside the closed-door sessions, German diplomats expressed deep-seated frustration over U.S.-led policy. Conversations on climate, trade, and global security collapsed into deadlock. No climate agreement, no trade roadmap, no coordinated security stance. Just empty rooms and quiet, fruitless negotiations. The optics were unavoidable. G7 unity hadn't merely been tested. It had cracked wide open for the world to see. Canada drew a line in the sand. National defense funding would not be traded. Germany and France stood firm in support. NATO quietly confirmed that hitting a 5% GDP threshold on defense spending was politically unfeasible. if not absurd. Legal teams in Japan, Mexico, and the European Union prepared countermeasures, readying for a legal and regulatory fight that would stretch far beyond the summit's end. The summit floor resembled a courtroom, not a conference room, a place where nations were no longer seeking common ground, but defending themselves from allies turned adversaries. The real economic fallout is staggering. German exports to the US dropped by over $17 billion this year, hitting key sectors like automobiles and machinery. Japan's aluminum producers face persistent uncertainty as they struggle to plan production in the face of arbitrary tariffs. Mexico's trade sector braces for potential duties unless it agrees to controversial changes in immigration enforcement. What was supposed to be a forum for cooperation had become an exercise in damage control. The World Bank didn't bury this data. It headlined it: a 0.7% global growth downgrade, a 12.4% capital flight, blocked exemptions, and cascading tariffs, each one a clear indicator of how deeply the summit's failure had disrupted global markets and confidence. This wasn't diplomacy, it was triage. Leaders weren't shaping the future, they were struggling to contain the present. This rupture demands hard questions. How will Canada's quiet stand echo across NATO discussions, WTO arbitration, and Arctic cooperation? Will allies work to repair fractured trust, or will this become the new normal? Summits without statements, photo lines without meaning, diplomacy stripped of substance. This moment wasn't just history, it was a tipping point. It exposed fissures that had long been papered over and forced them into daylight. The next battles won't be fought on podiums, but in legal memorandums, behind closed doors, in negotiation rooms, and in the quiet formation of new strategic alliances. This summit wasn't a climax. It was a signal flare warning of storms ahead. Diplomacy is evolving, not through grand speeches or choreographed press releases, but through tactics, resolve, and increasingly silence. The age of photo ops masking disunity may be ending. The questions left behind will define the next chapter of global relations. So don't blink, because the real rupture is just beginning. If this kind of analysis matters to you, subscribe, comment your thoughts below, and share this video with someone who still thinks summits are just photo ops. What we're witnessing isn't just a diplomatic event, it's the evolution of diplomacy, unfolding in real time.